Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Law and Finance Show. And today we have a great guest on. Now, one of the things that you really think about when it comes down to business is that at some point you may want to get into M&A activity. And as a person who has, supported on the finance side of due diligence, it is a nightmare if you don't know what you are doing. And even more so is the legal side of those agreements that go into M&A are, I will say, is you never want to do it yourself. You never want to try to figure it out yourself. I'm telling you, you want to bring in a specialist. So today, I'm excited to talk with our guest that we're going to have on, and we're going to talk about their firm. We're going to talk about the awesome things they're doing in the M&A space and the other things going on at their law firm. So stay tuned for today's episode. So without further ado, let me bring on my guest, Nouvelle Gonzalo. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Terrell. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's always a pleasure. Now I will say is from the image of like how your photo looks, I have to ask, where are you located? Because it seems like you're in a sunny place. So where are you located?
Yes, I am. So, our firm, right now, we have three offices. We are in Cleveland, Ohio, Gainesville, Florida, and we just opened up our Miami office, Florida, in Miami, Florida. I'm in our Gainesville office right now, but I am in sunny Florida. But yes, that's where we're at. But we do have plans to open up offices in New York and Manhattan, and then London and Singapore.
Oh wow, that is awesome. So we are definitely going to talk about that
Let's do
because
that.
I do think a lot of times when I talk to different lawyers and even when I just talk to business owners in general as they're thinking about expanding and they hear different things like that, like hey, we're opening offices in different cities and stuff. So we're going to talk about that. But before we jump into that, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm originally from Akron, Ohio. I'm from the Midwest, and that's kind of where I was born and raised. But I grew up there, and then from there lived in D.C. for a little bit. I was a U.S. congressional page, and then from there went on to New York and went to NYU and studied there. Spent some time abroad in Italy, and then after graduation went on to live in Spain for about a year and a half, working there and serving as a translator and interpreter for the Spanish Air Force, and then also taught English. Started my own company doing that, and also taught while I was there, and then came back to the U.S. and was ready to get going with law school. I went to Ohio State for law school and Oxford University in England, so both of them. And then after graduation, I went on and started practicing law.
Oh wow. I mean, such a rich history with so many different turns in there. So I'm curious is like in the midst of doing all those things from like, the moving around, the languages, the different backgrounds, like what was it about law that made you realize like, hey, I want to invest more of my time, energy in law?
Sure, absolutely. So I've always had a passion for business. I'll say that much. And I initially went to NYU to study international business and marketing. And so I was like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. I really want to do this. And so as I started going and getting deeper into my business coursework, I just started to see that the focus was more on let's, make money and, step on who you need to step on, make it to the top, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, wait a second. I said, I love to, be driven and, accomplish things and to work in business. It is wonderful, of course, to make money and to be successful at it. I said, but I also want to serve. So I said, how can I, make a great living, work in the business field, but be able to have a service aspect to it. And so my advisor at the time said, you should really consider law. Now, my father was a judge, and so I grew up around the law and I grew up very familiar with it, but more from the trial aspect and prosecutor and criminal aspect versus from the business aspect. So I didn't know as much how the business side of that worked. And so I got deeper into that and studying it. And so I said, okay, I said, so I can do business, I can be of service to people, and I can practice in an area I love. I'm like, this is perfect. This is the perfect combination. And so I transitioned from the advertising and marketing side of it and focused on the business and law side of it to be able to be of, the most service to people. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. I love it.
Mhm.
Now one of the things that I'm also curious about is, how
Mhm.
many different languages do you speak?
So I have been formally trained in 5 different languages. So that's Mandarin, Russian, Italian, Spanish, English, of course, and am I forgetting anything? French. But I do not fluently speak all of those languages. At this point, I am fluent in Spanish and English. I have a little bit of Italian left, but mostly it's Spanish and English. So yeah.
Gotcha. Now, I'm curious as you kind of like navigated kind of those, those languages and like the formal training. What made you pick like those specific ones, or did they just kind of like it was the, I guess you say the proximity of, hey, it was available, so you wanted to try it?
Sure. So growing up, Spanish was always taught in schools. So I took that, and then they had a requirement that you take some French so that you have an opportunity to get exposed to French too. So I did take that. And my mother was a French and Spanish teacher when she started her career. So I grew up around languages. And you know how parents, if you're a parent, you might remember and recall how you will sometimes spell things out so your kids don't hear it. So once I learned how to spell, my mom couldn't do that anymore. So she'd start using languages. And so she'd speak to my sisters in Spanish. And I'd be like, what is it? What are they saying? Like, I can't find out what they're saying. And so I said, I'm going to figure this out. So I would learn the language to be able to understand them a little bit better. And then I did a lot of traveling growing up with my mother. She did a lot of research and traveling as an educator. And so she took us with her everywhere. To Japan, she took us with her so we could she studied the Japanese education system, and she took us to Paris with her. And so it planted these seeds, when I was little, of there's a big world out there. There's so much to see. And I saw in your intro how you all have traveled the world, to Egypt, to Paris and DC. I saw all those great sites. And so, but that's what you got to do, is go see that world, because it all helps to contribute to such an amazing, amazing character, I think, of a person, and children too. So, yes, so that's where the languages came in. And I had an opportunity to take Russian. And my mom said, take it. I was like, no, but mom, it's so different. I don't want to, I'll just take some more French. She's like, yeah, you'll have your whole life to take French. Go take some Russian. So I said, okay. So now all I can say in Russian is ti pastoi, pastoi, krasavitsa moya, which has come back to me, my fair love, from a very famous Russian folk song. So anytime I meet anybody who's Russian or speaks Russian, I'll tell them that. They're like, that's a very odd thing to remember. I said, well, it's a song, so you can remember songs well. And so in Mandarin, I spent some time doing research in China and in mainland China and Taiwan and Taipei. And so I took Chinese and Mandarin while I was there. So Mandarin Chinese.
Awesome. And yeah, I
Mhm.
will say I feel the same way about like when it comes down to learning languages. Like
Mm.
sometimes like there's certain cadences, the way things flow. Because I lived in Brazil for about a year,
Wow,
um,
nice.
and I will say the what helped me learn, I guess, to understand it better
Mhm.
is when I just like stop trying to just learn the technical framework of the words, and I just allow myself to learn the cadence. Because sometimes
Mhm.
as I talk to some people who speak Spanish fluently, they say, people who
Yes.
speak Portuguese often sound like they're singing when they're talking. But I'm like,
Yes.
if you just go
Italians.
with the flow of it, it make
Mhm.
you'll actually understand it a little bit better. So
Yes, yes. I feel like the technical side is absolutely important, but then to have it become kind of more native like speech, you have to kind of adapt the cadence of it, as you said, for sure. And Italian is like that you adapt the cadence, and it's almost like a song, like ciao piacere come stai. And then but when you go to Spanish, it's more cut, like hola como estás, qué tal. And so I was speaking Spanish for a long time, in an Italian accent. I was like, "Oh, la cómo estás? ¿Qué tal?" People are like, "Please stop, just stop, stop." And my husband is from Spain, and so he helps to refine my Spanish. We actually only speak Spanish at home, and so yeah, so it's been very good.
Awesome, awesome. So that gives me a little bit of a hint of just kind of like the, opening offices in different locations. Now,
Sure.
one of the things that I'm interested in talking about is, when it comes down to, just the idea of opening offices in different locations, one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is how in the world am I going to manage all that? So,
Mhm, mhm.
how has that been as far as like being able to, keep your eye or your hands involved at the right level for all these locations?
That's a great question. And I would say start small. First, start with your one office and location and work on getting that going like a well oiled machine and coming along really well so you can put the processes in place to expand and to do other things. So we started small, and that's what we've done. It's just a little bit at a time. Don't take on a whole bunch of overhead. We started with a virtual office first and grow from there, and then go into more like physical offices and that sort of thing. But just start small. Don't bite off more than you can chew, and collaborate with experts to help you to do what it is that you're trying to do. So for example, one of the things I notice is wherever I focus my time and energy, we can grow that really well. So if I'm focused in on Cleveland, we grow Cleveland. If we focus in on Gainesville, we go Gainesville. Miami, Miami. The challenge is trying to do all of those at the same time. And so once you'll probably, an individual will probably get to the point at one point, and we have even got to that point now, where now we need to start bringing in an operations person. And so we're actually interviewing for a chief operating officer to help so that I'm able to focus in more on the practice of law and offset more of the operations to our COO to spearhead. And then they can help. They bring in all their wealth of experience in finance and marketing and HR and all of that sort of thing. But the big thing is not trying to do everything yourself. And that's the difference from being a startup. When you're just getting started, you're doing everything yourself. You're wearing every single hat. You're the marketing person, you're the salesperson, you're the researcher, you're the professional, you're all those things. But then as time goes along, you then start delegating those to people who can do them faster, easier, more quickly, and then you focus on what is the highest and best use of your time. And so that's what I've done. And the great thing, though, about that startup side is that you learn every aspect of the business. And, I would be reading books on marketing. I'd be reading books on finance. I'd be reading books on this, so I have, yes, education. I've, got my degrees. That's all great. But when you get into the business and you get working on it, it's not just about the degrees and all of that. You need to get the hands-on experience, dealing with clients, negotiating deals, negotiating invoices. The nuances of human interaction and doing business is not something that's really taught in a classroom. You have to get that with experience. And so I'd say I've done that with experience. And then you need to get the books on it. And so I've done that, and I've gotten all the books. And then I reached out a lot. So pretty much every city that we're in and that most people are in has a major university of some kind. And so I'd say use those universities as a resource. There are, in Gainesville, we have 30,000 students at the University of Florida. And Cleveland, there's Case Western. It's not too far off the road from Ohio State and other universities. Miami, we've got University of Miami, Florida International, all these other schools. Nashville, in Tennessee, they've got their schools. So use those, because there are students who are spending all day, every day focused in on what you're doing. And so you can, they're looking for opportunities to sharpen their skills and to be able to put them to great use. And so we definitely tap into sharp entrepreneuring and really high performing grad students, law students, and have them help us and work with us. And then we also collaborate with specialists in the field who've been doing it for a long time. So.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I mean, all amazing advice. And I know you're a busy lady, so I do want to do a time check to see how much more time you have left. It's about what, 2:54 right now. You got a little
We're
bit more time
good.
left.
You're my last conference call appointment podcast of the day. So after this, I'm just going to be hopping on client projects. So we're good.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Mhm.
So now one of the things that I do want to talk about is, an area of work that you guys do a lot of great work in is when it comes down to M&A. And I will say my background is accounting and finance, and we often work with companies from the CFO or outsourced
Mhm.
CFO perspective. And a lot of times when they're going through some of that, the M&A activity, they get the sense of, yes, we need to analyze, hey, how the if it's a product fit. We need to do some due diligence on the financial side. But where I tend to see some businesses tend to be, I guess you say, not as quick to engage is the legal side of the discussion. So when it comes
Mhm.
down to M&A activity, like how early into the process do you guys usually get involved with your clients?
Sure. So we tell them honestly to get us involved early, even just from a coaching standpoint. We don't have to be all boots on the ground just yet, but from an early stage, we can help coach and guide negotiations of purchase price, considerations, and things that you might want to keep in mind. But I would say, for the most part, it is excellent for the business people to first focus in on what their key arrangement is. They can save a lot of time and money by bringing the lawyers in once they've agreed to that. But I will say, at least have your lawyer on hand and be talking with him or her, because you want to be having those conversations. Hey, they're bringing up this, they're saying that there's a health department concern. They're saying that there's some environmental potential issue, but I'm still really interested in it. Should we move forward? And I'll say, yes, but to what degree is there a concern there? If you're buying a business that's on a particular piece of land, you're planning on maybe doing something else with it, but the current location of it is maybe it had a gas station on it at one point. The ground under gas stations is contaminated. It actually has huge environmental remediation and cleanup that has to be done. And so if you buy that land thinking, I don't care, I'm planning on putting a high rise up on it anyway, no big deal, you're buying a tremendous environmental cleanup project that's very expensive that should be factored into the negotiation. So those types of things. But once you've agreed to everything, if you wait till you have agreed to everything, you've got a letter of intent already and everybody's already signed off on it, then you bring in your lawyer and we start working on the deal. We say, oh, you know what you just bought, right? You know that did you include in the purchase price that you're going to need about $500,000 in cleanup? And they'll be like, no, we didn't know about that. So or that you should consult an environmental expert. So things like that, we can help on the front end. And again, it's not a ploy or apply to try and make more money or something like that, but really it is to save them more money. It's always amazing to me sometimes how people might complain or say, oh, the legal fees are going to get hit with legal fees. And it's like, I never complain about my roofer doing roofing work. I never complain about the plumber doing the plumbing work. And it's like, we're working too. And it's really to protect our clients and to protect them over several decades and to protect them, because after that deal is done, when we're looking at negotiating asset purchase agreements, stock purchase agreements, due diligence, there's about, and most, the average deal, I'd say literally anything that's over 500,000 and up, you're going to have about 17 different documents that's part of that sale purchase agreement or sale purchase process. And so from disclosures to letters of intent to the purchase agreement to promissory notes to seller authorizations, buyer authorizations, the due diligence, there's so many things. And so many times people think it's just the one contract. And like, that one contract cost that much money? No, it's the 17 of the 17 contracts. So I will say the main sale agreement is the one that generally takes the most time. But yes, so bring your counsel in early, often, and then let them go and do what it is that they do. There's so many different types of clients, and some really want to be very involved, some are more hands off, that sort of thing. But I would say just work with your counsel on what you're looking to do, and trust and be comfortable that they're going to be able to represent your interests well. So.
Mhm. And I think you make some really good points because I will say is like having been on the side of working with some fairly large, like publicly traded companies where
Mhm.
they had signed some deals. And then afterwards, I'm digging into it and I'm looking at this and I'm just like, did anybody read this clause? Because there's like a very big
Mm.
liability attached to this. And
Mhm.
then when we kind
Mhm.
of, we researched it a little bit more, and then we realized, like, what, some of the times it's been, hey, had we known that on the front, or had that been a something that we were more aware of on the front end, the people who signed off on this probably would not have bought it. So it's one of those things I've
Mm.
seen that,
Yeah.
hey, I encourage people, bring your legal counsel in, like, sooner
Yeah.
than later,
Right,
um,
right,
to
right.
prevent you from running into those type of situations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I will tell you, for any investment that you make on the front end for counsel, it is going to be well worth it and will save you so much money on the back end for litigation. And so it really helps to be able to do that early on. So, I mean, if you're working on, I've seen hundreds of millions of dollars of deals that have one clause. They'll have a 100-page purchase agreement, and they have one clause that it's called a non-reliance clause. And that one clause states that the parties shall not rely on any representations from the other parties that they made, and outside the agreements. And you're like, what? No. It's like, no, if you are representing that you are going to do something, you need to do it. And that one clause will make litigation nearly impossible to pursue against them if they fail to perform, if they fail to act. And so you're talking about a lot of money that's being spent on the deal and on the transactions that can be ruined by one clause. And so it is extremely important. And sometimes people just say, oh, like, we want to just keep it very inexpensive. We don't want to use, too many resources, and, we don't want to have the attorney spend too much time. But the reality, let them spend the time. Let us spend the time because it's not that we're there waxing poetic. We really are working to protect you and to protect the company. So we want to make sure it's in a good and safe place today and 10 years from today. So.
Mhm. Nope, I think that is an amazing point. Now, outside of like M&A transactions,
Mhm.
are there other aspects of law or ways that you guys support your clients?
Absolutely. So we also work in intellectual property, doing trademark, copyright, non-disclosure agreements. I have colleagues we collaborate with on patent work, so we'll do that. We work with nonprofits to register them, keep them compliant, buy and sell them, and they're a whole different breed from for-profits. And so there's different rules that go with them and different guidelines. So we work with them on that. We also work in the medical space and healthcare law, in the sense that we work with physicians and medical practitioners that are looking to do many of the corporate things. So maybe they're starting a clinic or a hospital and they're looking to get that set up and done. So we will work with them to do that as well.
Awesome. I love it.
Mhm.
Now, if
And then
people are
also,
interested in learning a little bit more about the firm and where you guys are going, and just keeping an eye on, just as you guys are just taking over the globe, where should they look for you online?
sure, absolutely. So first, they can definitely check out our website. That is www.gonzalolaw.com. There it is. Yes. And we are there. They can find out information on our practice areas, our team that we work with. And then also we have a corporate client advisory team where we have professionals that we collaborate with to be able to provide resources to our clients, from CPAs to CFOs to all of that good stuff, technology, investigators, all of that. And so our information's there on nonprofit, healthcare, outsourced general counsel, IP, international, all that good stuff. And we have articles and information that they can find out more detailed information about. And also, they can find us on social media in terms of Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're there. I'd say we're probably most active on LinkedIn for sure, and also on Instagram. So, yes.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, before we wrap up, one final question I love
Yes.
asking every guest is, through all the amazing things that we've been discussing,
Mhm.
if there were two things that you wanted to like reiterate and point
Mhm.
people's attention to, like, hey, here are the two takeaways from our conversation, what would they be?
Two takeaways from the conversation, or just two things I've maybe learned um, over the years. I would say takeaways would be when it comes to business or law and finance, and when they're doing business with their companies, two takeaways would be to be prepared. And when I say be prepared, I mean to have your research done. Make sure you're collaborating with experts. No man or woman is an expert or genius in and of themselves. They should be collaborating with people who are also going to bring their expertise to the table, and it will just take you straight to the moon. And the second thing I would say is to be adaptable. Life and business is going to throw so many things at you, and you are not going to necessarily expect it. But if you're adaptable, you can adjust to it, and you can adapt, but not adopt. You don't have to adopt any frustration or the challenge or whatever or negativity that people might bring your way, but you can be adaptable to it, and you can assess and adjust and say, okay, be like a cat, literally, that just lands, like, okay, got to assess and adjust, got to move on to the next thing, no problem. And so you keep moving forward, and you keep doing your thing, and you work to make sure you're helping those coming behind you as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being an amazing guest today. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and it has been a pleasure having you on as a guest.
Well, thank you, Terrell. It has been so much fun to be here. You have a great show. I love the energy. I love the whole layout, and the great information that you're sharing with people is really, really awesome. And it's a wonderful resource. So.
Absolutely. Well, until next time, everyone. If you're looking for ideas on how to manage and grow a profitable law firm, this Facebook group is perfect for you, because every week we are featuring conversations with successful lawyers and businesses related to law firms on tips, ideas, and technology that are helping many people grow and manage a profitable law firm. So if you're looking for great tips and ideas, you definitely want to click the link below so you can join the conversation and be part of the Law Firms and Finance Facebook group.